It's looking like we're gonna get the character of Robin soon in live action, whether that be the Batman Part 2, where he's rumored to show up in the script, or the DCU Batman Brave and the Bold. As a huge fan of the character, specifically Dick Grayson Nightwing, I wanted to take some time to talk about the character of Robin and how he's been perceived among general audiences. And I also want to explain why I think Robin fits perfectly in the Batman Part 2. To start, I want to talk about a common misconception or even complaint that I see with the character of Robin. Since the release of Batman and Robin in 1996, general audiences have had the sentiment that Robin is actually a detriment to the character of Batman and he kind of makes the overall story worse. See, they attribute the over the top goofy side of Batman with the character of Robin. So whenever they see that he's in the media that Batman's in, that's what they're expecting they're going to get. And honestly, it's kind of hard to blame them. Just going off live action Robin appearances, Robin has been perceived by general audiences through, first off, the Burt Ward Robin, which was in the Batman television series from the 60s, where we had Boogie Down Batman, Surfing Joker, you name it, it was probably in that show. And Chris O'Donnell in the Schumacher movies, which was like a 30-year-old Robin with earrings and bat nipples, or Robin nipples. And while this is no diss on the actors or anything like that, it's clear to see why audiences feel like Robin is just the goofy sidekick who makes any Batman story kind of just like a silly adventure. Because of this honestly valid icy reception to the character, it kind of makes sense that Robin's been exiled from mainstream media for so long. The kind of over the top goofiness also created a problem where like now we're seeing almost a pendulum effect. It's actually the same effect we had with Batman where because of his goofy appearances in like the Schumacher movies, now most modern takes on the character are more gritty and grounded and dark. So looking at the modern Robin appearances we've had, we can see Joseph Gordon-Levitt in The Dark Knight Rises, which like, do you guys really count that? Again, he's like 30 and his first name is Robin. I mean, I remember seeing these like edited fan posters of him as Nightwing, and like whether you like the Nolan movies or not, would you really want this? Like, would you really want this guy as Nightwing? Was this really Nightwing material? Another thing is Robin being a cop is like the weirdest thing to me, and it makes no sense. And they did it again. Yeah, the other modern Robin portrayal we got to talk about is Titans. Listen, I'm not trying to be a hater. I don't want to be on that hater energy, but I really wanted to like this show, man. I love the Teen Titans. I love Dick Grayson Robin. I love seeing the Titans interact, but this show just like, why would you take the most lighthearted team in DC Comics and try and make them this like dark, sad, gritty team? It doesn't even seem like they like each other for the first like 2 seasons. Like to me, that is the complete opposite of what Robin is even supposed to be or represent, but I'll get a bit into that later. Like, why would they make him a cop again? I don't get what is the obsession with making Dick Grayson a cop? I don't get that. It seems like the characterization was like a severe course correction, which almost got rid of some of the foundational elements of the character of Robin and Dick Grayson's character. And while I like the portrayal of Jason a little bit better, I thought it was a bit closer to what Jason's supposed to be. I don't think that they gave enough time to explain why he was, maybe a bit more violent or aggressive. And I feel like they could have explained a bit more to add some more depth to his character. Also, we're just gonna skip over what they did with the Red Hood stuff in that show, okay? You good with that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Talking about the Robin portrayals in mainstream media, it's honestly no surprise that general audiences haven't been super receptive to the character. I think, quite honestly, like the writers and creators of this stuff just kind of missed the mark with it entirely, either being too goofy or too serious. And they failed to highlight what makes him so important to the Batman story. You see, the character of Robin is so much more than just like a goofy sidekick. He is the main source of like the light in Batman's story. And he helps Batman become a symbol of hope to the people of Gotham. Without Robin, Batman starts to become more violent and vengeance driven, losing the hope aspect that helps make the people of Gotham feel safe. The character of Robin is one of the main ways that we can actually see some development in Bruce, which is why some of the Batman movies have gotten some criticism for, Bruce not really having very deep character arc within the movies, and it being a more two-dimensional take on the character. People who say that Robin doesn't belong in Batman media probably don't know that he actually was introduced like only a year after Batman was created. I mean, he was a thing before characters like Alfred or Joker even existed. And people say those characters are pivotal to the Batman story. And I think that goes to show that Robin is just as, if not even more important to Batman's story than some of those landmark characters. And that's why Robin has remained a constant in the Batman story ever since. Whereas characters like Joker or Alfred have died in the comics before and have stayed absent for stretches of time. This point is heavily illustrated in the comics, and it's actually the entire reason why, after Jason Todd died, Tim Drake basically forced Bruce to make him Robin, saying that without a Robin, Batman would actually regress to that violent vigilante instead of the hopeful hero that he needs to be. This main idea is why I love the character of Robin so much, and why I think he fits perfectly into the Batman Part 2. Batman's arc in the first movie is kind of exactly what I said. I mean, he starts with being vengeance, and he needs to learn over the course of the movie that he needs to become something more if he wants to see actual change in Gotham. I feel like this is the perfect setup to introduce Robin in the second movie to help him stick to that promise that he made. A lot of fans say that they just don't see, a kid Robin fitting in the Matt Reeves story. And I think I just have to strongly disagree with that. I see the argument that it makes Batman seem like a crazy person for recruiting this child to become a soldier and putting him in danger. And I see people say that if Robin is included, he needs to be 17 or 18 years old. And again, I just don't agree with or want that at all. That argument that Batman would kind of look like a crazy person is actually a perfect way to play it in the movie. And the books have a reason for why Bruce decides to recruit this kid. In the comics, when Batman does first recruit Dick Grayson to be Robin, you have characters like Alfred or Superman kind of push back and say, what are you doing? Why are you recruiting this kid? And Bruce's reason for this is that he just doesn't want Dick to become him. Bruce went through a similar tragic event where he had to see his parents get murdered, and it drove him on a path of vengeance, which ultimately caused what happened in the Batman Part 1. I mean, his vengeance inspired people like the Riddler to take that message and warp it and cause more harm. Bruce wants to teach Dick that it's not about vengeance, but it's about taking that pain and that hurt and making it something good. It's about inspiring the world to do better and helping Gotham to be a better place. I mean, I can already see Andy Serkis's Alfred kind of arguing with Bruce that what he's doing is reckless or wrong, and Bruce explaining to Alfred that, he can't let this kid become another Riddler and have that darkness and vengeance drive him to do awful things. When looking at the stories in the comics, it seems like, the next step for Batman to become that kind of peak Batman that we love is, the introduction of Robin, who helps him become almost more like a symbol and more larger than life as a hero instead of, just a dark vigilante. Since without Robin, Batman stays as that, vengeful, dark vigilante who ultimately isn't doing as much as he could to help his city. I feel that a lot of people who don't trust the idea or character of Robin simply haven't seen him portrayed in a good way, which is why I want to recommend some stories that I think would kind of show you why he works so perfectly in any Batman media, whether it's grounded or fantastical or whatever it be. And I feel like these stories really show why he's such an integral part of Batman's character. The first story is Batman Dark Victory by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. It's a reimagining of the introduction of Dick Grayson as Robin, and it shows a more gradual, natural progression into him becoming Robin alongside Batman, instead of, Bruce just adopting him and throwing a costume on him. I could see Matt Reeves taking a lot of inspiration from this book specifically because the Batman Part 1 was highly inspired by The Long Halloween, which this is the direct sequel to. I could see them kind of following this story progression as well, where to make it a bit more believable and not as kind of insane, they could show Dick Grayson proving himself to be a good ally for Batman before he dons the R at the end of the movie. Robin and Batman by Dustin Nguyen and Jeff Lemire is an amazing book as well because it shows a great arc for both Bruce and Dick. This book covers Dick's very early journey into becoming Robin, and it really highlights Bruce learning that he can't treat Dick like a soldier, and he can't train him the same way that he kind of trains himself and talks to himself, which is this very harsh, angry, driven way. He learns that instead of that, he needs to be a father to Dick, and he needs to help him become something greater than he could ever be. Unlike All-Star Batman, where Bruce is honestly written like an abusive parent, this takes a spin where, Bruce just needs to get out of his own darkness, and he needs to learn through people like Alfred or Superman what the best way is to help this kid not become vengeful. On the other hand, we see Dick kind of figuring out what his role is as Robin. We see him fight against the darkness that Bruce feels, and we see him try and help Bruce out of that a bit. We also see him learning why it's so pivotal to have a team and to have a support system through him meeting the Titans. And I just really like this book because it almost shows both of the characters learning the importance of the relationship between Batman and Robin. So it's a really good story for maybe some of you who don't see that importance between the two characters. The follow-up to the series, Robin and Batman, Jason Todd, came out this year. It takes what that book did and it kind of puts a spin on it since we're dealing with a new character, Jason Todd. With this book, Bruce faces a different challenge where now it's almost the reverse, where Bruce is trying to help Jason not fall into that vengeful path and not have the idea in his head that he's just a soldier. In this book, Jason is, more angry as Robin than Dick Grayson was because ultimately he went through, a harsher life and he experienced worse things that created this sort of darkness inside him. It's a really good story which builds on the development that we see in Bruce from the initial Batman and Robin book. And it highlights the differences between Dick and Jason Todd, which is really interesting to see because it shows how each character kind of impacted Batman in a different way. The final book I'd recommend is called The Boy Wonder by Juni Ba. It's about Damian Wayne being Robin, and while Batman is not as present in this book, it's a great book for kind of seeing how the Bat family interacts with each other. It's a great example of why the Bat family is so important for Batman and what Batman kind of looks like becoming that full-fledged hero with a massive team and support system. All of these books to me are really great places to kind of learn the importance of Robin and also the Bat family as a whole to the mythos of Batman. And I can see someone like Matt Reeves taking inspiration from some of these stories to fold Robin into his world and really stick to the core principle of what makes Robin so important and such an integral character. To add, Dark Victory and the Robin and Batman books are pretty grounded, so they help paint a pretty good picture of what Robin could look like in Matt Reeves' world. In the end, I feel like the reason Robin hasn't worked well in live action media isn't because he's too goofy or too serious, but because I feel like most adaptations of the character have kind of missed what his pivotal role is in the Batman story. And that is to be the light that guides Batman towards hope, rather than darkness and vengeance. And I know what some of you are thinking, Carter, we have the perfect Batman and Robin movie, wrap it up. Nothing's gonna top it. And you know what? The Lego Batman movie is pretty good. But let me know what you think. Do you want to see Robin in the Batman Part 2, or would you rather it stay a solo Batman story? Are you of the opinion that Robin should stick to more comic booky fantastical stories like the DCU's Batman Brave and the Bold? I'd love to hear what you think. And I know this is another The Batman video. I promise I will talk about different stuff, but my next video is going to be comic related, and it's going to be my recommendation of how to get into comics if you're someone who's been wanting to read them. But anyways, thanks for watching Carter Talks Comics. See ya.